Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, sir. It is a great privilege to share the panel with the distinguished panelists like Dr. Moni, Dr. Patil, and Dr. Trivedi. And I would also like to thank Mr. Ravi Gupta and his team from CSDMS for inviting me at this forum and share my views. My talk will be related to the impact of climate change on agriculture in India and how ICTs can play an important role. This is work done by myself and one of my students, Tanvi Ahmed, who is also around for questions. I would not like to go into details. We all know about Indian agriculture. Mr. Dr. Moni has already given some statistics. Uh, and then climate change is impacting agriculture, impacting all other sectors across the world, and agriculture is no exception. It represents a core part of the Indian economy, and data shows that climate change is going to impact the agricultural supply chains and food demand and supply scenario, and it will also impact the quantitative as well as the qualitative aspects of food production. Quantitative, when we mean when I talk about quantitative, it says that crop production will be impacted, productivity will be impacted, and qualitative because the change in temperature may bring down the quality of fruits and vegetables. The policy implications are wide-reaching as changes in agriculture could affect food security, trade policy, and other livelihood activities. Then extreme events become more likely, for example, droughts and floods. Flooding also has a huge impact on sanitation facilities. And if we talk about water availability, gross per capita water availability is declining from 1820 cubic meter per year in 2001 to 1140 uh, cubic meter in 2050. A fall in average annual growth rate of agricultural sector from more than 4% to less than 2% has already been noted. Uh, this is data from National Action Plan for Climate Change. Increase of 0.4 degrees Celsius has been observed in the surface air temperature. Increase in monsoon rainfall along some of the areas in India such as West Coast, North AP, and North and Western India up to the tune of 10 to 12%, whereas there is a decrease in the monsoon rainfall in Eastern MP, North Andhra Pradesh, and Northeastern India, and rise in sea level between 1.06 to 1.75 millimeter per year. This is the data by Unni Krishnan and Shankar. These are some of the climate change scenarios for India. You can just see that right from the 2020s to 2080s, there is going to be a lot of increase in the temperature and change in the rainfall, which is going to impact the food security status in the country. This is the water supply and demand gap. If we see this area, there are only northeastern states which will be having surplus water, whereas most of the areas in India will be having severe shortage of water in 2020. This is the potential impact of climate change on wheat production in India. That is a study done by IRI. And overall temperature increases are predicted to reduce rice yields. An increase of 2 to 4 degrees Celsius is predicted to result in the result in vast reduction in yields. Eastern regions are predicted to be most impacted by the temperatures and decreased radiation. And although this additional, CO2 can benefit crops, but this, this increase in temperature is going to impact the rice production. If we see this, there will be direct impacts on the crop growth, there will be indirect effects on Indian agriculture, and this is going to impact the socio-economic status of the farming communities in general. Direct effects could be related to the physiology of the crops, phenology and morphology, especially in the case of fruits and vegetables, as has already been discussed. We already have 40% of post-harvest losses, and with increase or decrease in temperature, this may even be severe. And if we talk about indirect effects, soil fertility will decrease, and irrigation availability, the resurgence of pests and the number of pest occurrence and floods and droughts and other impacts could be observed. And this is ultimately going to impact the socioeconomic status of the farming communities related to shortage in food supply, and it will also be impacting the trade between the countries. So what we need is the adaptation and the mitigation strategies for agriculture. But what we notice is that there is an information deficit. Our farmers, I mean, we are doing studies, ICR is doing studies, international organizations are doing studies, TERI is doing a lot of studies related to climate change. We recently had the privilege of working on revisiting National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, where we have made some recommendations. But farmers, the major stakeholders, are unaware of the information deficit. They have limited information and access to data on climate change, limited access to credit and insurance services, limited access to computer, internet, mobile and other infrastructure has already been highlighted, and almost no access to weather and disaster related information. So is the state of the different stakeholders in agri supply chains, that is extension workers and government authorities, who lack information on changing climate. This is because of that there has not been any database on climate change data, on the climate change at the local and regional level. We recently conducted a small study which was based on the Kamrup and Jorhat district in Assam, and this was based on the focus group discussions among the farmers. Here farmers have evidenced changes in I would not be sharing the entire study because it has been communicated to one of the journals. But I can just give some of the results. Farmers have evidenced changes in local climate, and they report that monsoon rains are now irregular and unpredictable, with storms and groundwater sinking further, coupled with soil layers losing moisture. There has been, farming communities have hardly any access to information related to climate change, and they also lack scientific adaptation knowledge, practice and strategies. At present, in the Brahmaputra basin, knowledge about future climate change is really limited. Farmers also reported loss in tree population, loss in soil fertility and reduction in the number of earthworms. In most of the villages, productivity of coconuts and betel nuts has decreased exponentially. The population of pests has assumed an increasing trend for the last few years in both the districts. Small-scale farmers have no assistance, so entirely they depend upon the climate and same agricultural practices of generations. These two districts unfortunately have no access to ICTs. Whereas, our National Action Plan for Climate Change suggests that, this is a statement which I have taken from this NAPCC, which says that agriculture will need to be progressively adapted to projected climate change, and our agricultural research systems must be oriented to monitor and evaluate climate change and recommend changes in agricultural practices, of course backed by the traditional knowledge and practice systems, information technologies, geospatial technologies and biotechnology. So here comes the role of information and communication technologies. Information and communication technologies can really play an important role in disseminating, generating information related to climate change. These are the main technologies which right now we are using as mainly through the initiatives of government sector, private sector and civil sector. We have community radio, mobile phones, and all these could play an important role in sharing the climate change information. ICTs can help in three ways. First is assessing the impact of climate change systems. That means if we what has been the impact of climate change and how they are impacting the crop production. Through different technologies we can assess the impact, and then they can also play an important role in the next step, which is climate change adaptation and mitigation. Third, it can also introduce the resilience in the systems. Again, a National Action Plan for Climate Change highlights that these are the 4 priority areas where ICTs can play an important role. That means we have to develop the regional databases of soil, weather, genotypes, land use patterns and water resources, monitoring of glaciers and ice mass impact on water resources, soil erosion and associated impacts, providing information on off-season crops, aromatic and greenhouse crops, and otherwise agricultural diversification. Collection and dissemination of block level data on agroclimatic variables, land use and socio-economic features. So again, national action plan says, it stresses on the need to understand monsoon dynamics. This is based on this is a different action plan on strategic knowledge on climate change. These are some of the adaptation strategies. Different services which are already available, they need to be integrated to provide climate change related information. These are the mainly 4 areas where ICTs can play an important role. And at this platform, I would urge all the public sector officials and private sector companies who are in this particular field to work towards this area, because the information of stakeholders is, especially the farmers, is the most important. First area is developing information systems. That means data collection on climate variability and national, regional and local levels through remote sensing and sensor-based networks. Then data storage. This is also one of the area where information technologies can play an important role through digital repositories, data sharing among institutions. This is one of the biggest gap. We have lot of data. Especially in government sector, we have lot of data which is with the private sector, but hardly it is shared amongst the institutions. So institutional networking is more important, where data can be shared between the meteorological department, ICR institutes, people working at the field level. And then measuring the impacts of climate change is another area where we can use different kinds of technologies. These are some of the softwares which have been developed at various universities and research institutes across the globe. And another application is in the adaptation area. That means we need to disseminate best agricultural practices in light of changing climate. Farmers should be knowing about how weather is going to impact his crops, how are the changes going to happen in different kinds of rainfall and other things. And then local level solutions need to be generated and shared. This especially could be done at the community radio level. Community-based practical solutions through networking and communication, and different kind of information delivery to stakeholders related to climate change information. This could be done through early warning systems, pest and disease monitoring systems, and other methods. And the last one is how we can build the resilience in the systems. ICTs, of course, will help in the training of the farmers, building adaptive capacities, awareness creation, and especially in research and training. So this is how it is, but there are some barriers related to ICTs and climate change information. We will encounter these barriers as we go along, but then we have to build a framework. So the basic need is to have a framework at the national level which will work for institutional networking and providing better information to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.